What's up, folks? Casual Dad here to look at another Battle Pass season. This is a really cool one. We're looking at Death Company. So we've got the Blood Angels Codex really inspired the next set here. We probably are going to get a new Supreme Commander. I have not looked at the Blood Angels Codex to know who that is. My assumption is Dante, but I'd have to double check. So right off the bat, I have not looked into this at all. This is the first time I've seen this banner even, so I was just looking at the different pieces here. I love these cosmetics right there. The whole like dreadnought thing with the shoulder and the power fist is just, oh, that is good stuff. And this stuff is cool too. Actually, so that portrait goes with the Battle Pass season. I don't think that is representative of who the Supreme Commander is, but that would be interesting. Because that's a dreadnought face. So it would mean that whoever the Supreme Commander is in a dreadnought, which means I really missed some lore changes. But anyway, this is a cool one. I really like Blood Angels. I have really enjoyed the variety of new Blood Angels cards that have been coming out so far, and I assume this Battle Pass will come with some other ones. And also, I do know that the lead developer, Harry, has a Blood Angels army and is particularly connected to Blood Angels too. So he probably had a lot of fun working out this season, and we'll take a look. Interestingly, these two cards and one other one have visually changed. These three, actually, are now different artwork in the game. So your Sanguinary Priest, I forget if it's not Corbulo, it's the other one. The Sanguinary Guard? Yes, Sanguinary Priest, Sanguinary Guard, and then the Death Company Ezio over here. They all have different artwork to match the newer models, which is interesting. So you'll probably see that in game. It is fun that this was made before that, but yeah. So here we go. Greetings, citizens. As a season of scrutiny from the Inquisition, it has been deemed necessary to dispatch the Angels of Death, and none of the Astartes embody this title more than the Blood Angels. Literally angels. This season we'll be looking at some overdue buffs for the oldest Blood Angels range, ooh, and you can also expect a big expansion in their roster over the coming season. There it is. Again, I have not looked at this at all. Not the banner, not any of the changes, so this is going to be totally fresh for me. Following on from last season, the cards being added to the general pool are also listed here and will be going forward. Nice. So they've upped the rotation, so cards will be added to the general pool faster. And what that means is that your general pool of cards is any of the cards that you could pull from a victory pack, just for your timing, your countdown packs, your just skull packs. And whatever cards you can pull are the ones in the general pool. So some of the super heavies, some of the Supreme Commanders, have not been in that pool for a long time, so you could only get them by buying it or winning them from a specific event. But now they're being added back in, so you're actually going to start getting those Warlords dropped, which is super cool. Warlords and Bodyguards, actually. Let's get stuck in. Space Marine. This guy, he's had such a long life as one of the core utility pieces of Space Marines as being a 12-point shielded card, but his stats are terrible. So he doesn't do anything except that they're in soak up wounds or soak up damage, so getting extra wounds is good. One of the first cards every player unlocks, Avernus quickly gets dropped as a player progresses. I still see him a lot, but I could see the argument for sure. Hopefully a buff to both wounds and damage, and that's base, so when he's leveled up he'll be much higher. Damage output should make him more attractive further into the game. And he already has that utility for being cheap and having shields. In an Acheron deck, he's such a tar pit. And even in a Tolmaron deck, he's a good cheap drop to also hold up the flank while your ranged cards do their work. Next up, Brother Abelius. Blood Angels Terminator, +5 range. The second of the two classic Blood Angel Terminators. And this is one where I feel his hit points are always lacking for his cost. His attack stats were okay, but he's pretty flimsy for what you get. But so +5 range will help though. Abelius is another one that's easy to overlook in the large Space Marine roster in the 10 to 20 points range. As a low-cost barrage infantry, every extra point of ranged output can make a huge difference. So a decent ranged buff should make him more viable. What I love about this is you're already seeing a theme around Tolmaron, where Abelius is one of the cards that falls a little bit behind other ones who are in the same points bracket and have barrage. So, and he's also Firstborn. He's not Primaris. And some of the Primaris cards are just easy adds beyond him. So to see cards that will combo with the Blood Angels Warlord is a really nice way to start this season. I like that a lot. Brother Gorjan, the Hellblaster. And the pictures are broken here. That's a bummer. Talking of Blood Angels ranged options, it doesn't get more classic than Gorjan. A small reduction in cost is always welcome and helps fitting him into Tolmaron decks where he wants to maximize your deck size. So right off the bat here, we've got a thicker tar pit, we've got a blastier barrage, and then we have a cheaper precision shot, all of which are Blood Angels and super good with Tolmeron. Let me give this a... Hang on. Alright, so I need to share this. So I just had a bit of a network issue and I couldn't connect to the Wi-Fi, and I did the troubleshooting thing for Windows, which has literally never worked for me in my entire life, and it works. I was trying forever to connect to my Wi-Fi network and it just wouldn't connect, and the debugger was like, oh, we found an issue, we fixed it. I was like, wait, that's not real. Obviously, I've fallen asleep at my desk. This is a dream. Anyway, we're going right along here. Brother Gorja now has a picture, hilariously. Furio, the Blood Angel's Ball Predator, now has a Grey Knight image. I'm going to go ahead and say that's my fault. The Blood Angel's Ball Predator. And that's a great lead into another good Tolmeron option, the Ball Predator, also getting a points drop. While a newer card, I don't think I have that one either. On reflection, the Ball Predator may be a bit on the pricey side, and as mentioned, we want to make sure to maximize your deck size when building a Tolmeron deck. Even outside of Tolmeron, more for less is always great. And yeah, it's a card I never see, ever. I've never seen it in play. I don't own a copy of it. I haven't even seen it right now because... picture. So hopefully that comes up more, but I'll actually need to get a copy of it and level it up before I can use it, but that will give you like an actual vehicle option for Blood Angels, which is really cool. That's really one of the things that a Blood Angels Tolmeron deck is missing. So, love it. Next up, we got Kasser the Damned, and this is a bit of a shock. This is already one of the best melee cards in the game, in one of the best melee factions in the game. So -4 cost to Kasser the Damned, the Blood Angels Death Company Dreadnought. Finally, we can't talk about the classic Blood Angels cards without talking about Kasser. One of the original Space Marine melee powerhouses, he's fallen behind over time, but hopefully now a significant price drop can get him back in the spotlight and defended with other great options without too much deck sacrifice. My thing on him, I'm waiting to get the level 9 to get that second trait, and I don't have that yet, and that's where he'll really compete with my other epics that are level 9. He is tricky to fit in based on cost, so this will be a huge help, because if you're taking like 3 power pieces in your deck, 1 point each between them could add up very quickly. So that -4 cost to 1 is nice. I'm a little scared though, because he's a really, really scary piece, particularly scary in Logan Grimnar decks. But I will say that I think Bjorn has kind of replaced him, and so has the Blood Angel, or the Space Wolf Dreadnoughts tend to outperform him in terms of deck building, but still really good. Moving on to the wider card pool, we've got a more diverse selection of cards being buffed across most factions. Ooh, and a long overdue Warlord change was that. Eldari, we got the Anti-Infantry Gunner, a newer Eldari card seeing a big uptick in use but struggling to get the job done. A lot of this may be down to how fragile it is, so a bit more wounds will definitely help it establish itself. My guess would be that one's so new that it's card level. The people running that don't have a higher level card to put it in place, or they're just running Drukhari because they can now. Mine is fairly low level, so it's going to be a while before that one competes with the other cards, and could definitely have a place in my Zephyrblade decks. We'll see how that goes. Baharoth, again, at max level, Baharoth is a monster of a card. So I'm a little surprised to see this buff too. But also no one has max level Baharoth, so. Of the large roster of strong Eldari cards in the 30s range, which is all the other Phoenix Lords, Baharoth often gets outshined despite his legendary status. A generous all-round buff should make him a much more competitive choice and feel like a Phoenix Lord should. Now his trait combination is awesome. His balance, melee, and ranged is amazing. He's one of the few cards in Eldari that's kind of equally competent at both. So if you're running kind of a balanced deck that's both ranged and melee, Baharoth and the... Baharoth should be one of your first picks. We'll just leave it at that. So that's very cool to see. Really strong card. It took me a very long time to get a single copy, and it's going to take me forever to level him up. So that's kind of what's holding me off on him. But I've used him in max level campaigns, and he was phenomenal. So definitely check him out if you get the chance. Necron, Tireless Resistance, the Sotek Dynasty Tesseract Arc. -5 cost, wow. Plus 15 ranged. Of the Necron Lords of War, the Tesseract stands out as being noticeably behind its peers. Costing the same as the Obelisk, it has 30 less wounds, 21 less range, and arguably slightly better traits. Yeah. So to fix that obvious difference, the Tesseract Vault is getting a noticeable drop in points and a significant bump in its range. Yeah. Yeah, which should place it on a much more even footing with the other Lord of War options. And I honestly haven't used this one very much, but it's one that really scares me when someone decides to run it. So we'll see. -5 cost and +15 ranged is really dramatic. What really holds this one down is I believe this is one that doesn't have Barrage. And if you're looking at that points cost, there's some extremely powerful cards with that Barrage, which has so much utility that even taking something more expensive with lesser stats is worth it if it's a Barrage card versus one that's not. But we'll see. There may be one that has Barrage, but I don't think that one does. Chaos. That was fast. This guy's a brand new card. All right. Zamat Kor, Thousand Sun Zangor. As a non-Psyker Zinj card, the Zangor has that familiar spot as a Psychic support card with its Psychic buff ready on Psychic, but realistically doesn't offer much beyond that, especially because mine is level 2. Given that is how he will often be used, maximizing his damage output and therefore Furious charge damage, makes it much more useful either as a support card or hopefully now moving him into the general melee deck rosters too. And that is good. His stats are total junk, but he's like 5 points. So he's so cheap that I'm not surprised his stats are bad. But yeah, this definitely is going to help kind of see him used more. Yeah, okay. Ooh, Lord of Skulls. My brother's going to be happy to hear about this one. Zukul of the 8 Reaping. Mine is 10 cost. Whoa. On something with that many points cost, that's not a huge change, but that's still it is a huge change. 10 points is a lot. Just like the Brass Scorpion from last season, the Lord of Skulls stands out as a slightly older Lord of War that is much pricier than a lot of other similar options. A significant cost decrease should make it much more viable, which is great given how fantastic the model is. We want to be seeing this card front and center in more 400-point battles. Now, between the two, you could run a mask deck with both the Lord of Skulls and the Brass Scorpion and gain a lot of deck points between the two. So, interesting. Servants. Oh, boy. Okay. Huh. All right. So, before we tuck into the actual changes, so we're looking at Supreme Commander Belisarius' Call, taking some changes here. I got so frustrated at the volume of times I went up against a Call deck, and the play experience against it is just not fun. Or has not been up to now. And the decks were pretty much always you'd get your 3 Psionic Blast Psychers, a bunch of Taunt and Medicae, and you just can't kill it because they keep moving lanes and absorbing damage, and anytime you're not actively shooting them, their health would build back up to the point where you couldn't kill them anymore before they killed you. And the damage was bad, but the biggest problem that I had with these was not being able to kill them fast enough. The healing made all the difference. I can't even count the number of times I had like a board wipe or a lethal shot on 2 or even 1 key piece, and it healed up right before I was able to hit it. So this is a major buff to one of the most problematic warlords in the game, or excuse me, a major nerf to one of the most problematic warlords in the game, and we're seeing both stat changes change quite a bit. So -5 cost, so it did get cheaper, but really the decks built around him were already about the scariest they're going to get. That is not a very significant change, really, but it does compensate a little bit for the big nerf. So the minimum damage dealt, which again includes through shields, through fear, through taunt, has gone down from 75 down to 60. So if you debuff him, he actually will start doing less damage through defensive pieces. So you should find yourself being much more durable against Call decks, which is so nice. But then also the self-healing has halved from 10% to 5%. Now for the really high hit point cards, that's still going to be huge, but if it's a Call deck with a couple really high power cards, you still have the utility to play around that with target acquired and really high burst damage and big game hunter. If it's the Psyker board where they all have about 200 hit points, that will really help punch through them in ways that I wasn't able to this season. If I saw a Call deck, I assumed I was going to lose. Played my best against it, but it was just, yeah. So I really appreciate seeing this change. This was a while coming. My understanding is that it's really challenging to rework the rule, and there was kind of a hesitation to just change the numbers without totally redesigning the rule. I think the big question was, will just toning down the numbers a little bit be enough to make the difference? And Servants of the Emperor has some of the best bodyguards in the entire game. I think this will still be just fine. CAWL has been the hot topic since his release, which has been several seasons. So we're making a long overdue decisive change to his special rule. We've been aiming to do a proper mechanical fix, addressing how it interacts with AoE traits, but it's been challenging both to implement and make the time for. Rather than waiting for the right opportunity to make this change, which at this time is still unknown, we're going for an all-round nerf to the rule's values. By reducing his damage output by 1/5 and his defensive faction by 1/2, he should be much less of a menace. Given how significant this nerf is, we're partially rolling back his initial nerf, increasing his cost by 10 points to just 5. Okay. And we'll be keeping an eye on these changes and continue from here. But really, this is a huge improvement. So I am going to be playing more this season and specifically looking for CAWL decks to see how different the matchup feels, right? So this should make a dramatic impact, especially getting that healing, which was the biggest challenge for me. But the mechanics comment here, I want to say that there's so many interactions with an off-lane attack. If you think of every single defensive trait, shield, sphere, taunt, vols, damage reductions, all the different damage reductions out there, there's a mechanical issue that was discovered by creating Belisarius CAWL that requires redesigning like a third of the traits in the game to kind of get this mechanically to work the way it was intended to. And so that's why he still is the way he is and hasn't been changed for so long. The shaving points is kind of an easy way to adjust it without really changing anything about him. So I would like to hear from Servant's players to see if this CAWL nerf really just kills him or if he's still really strong. Because my assumption is he's still going to be incredibly strong. Just not, too strong. We'll see. Tyranids. I've got a broken image again. I hope internet's not going out again. Ooh, the Hive Fleet Leviathan Hive Tyrant. -3 cost. Okay, and this is the Shooty Hive Tyrant. Of the two Hive Tyrants, this triple attack version is noticeably more expensive and as such struggles in the Tyranid roster, which is packed with choices for big bad beasties. Hopefully a decent price reduction gives this versatile card more chance to stand out. That rounds out the balance changes. Now here's a full list of the 10 cards. Ooh, 10 cards being added to the general pool. And for this guy, real quick, it's not the cost that challenges me. He's a brand new card. My card level is really low. So I don't run him because he just doesn't have the stats to compare. The -3 cost will help, of course, but it's level that's holding me back on him. So I'll have to try him in some of the max level events to see how he feels. But I could see his play rate being low in general because the players that do have him at like level 2. So we'll see. Oh, this is going to be fun. So these are still going to be newer cards. They're now doing a much more rapid rollout of the general pool cards. So I don't have this guy. This is really cool. So you rule the Deathly Eloquent, the Troop Master, the Harlequin Troop Master for Eldari, Asmodai, the Master of Repentance, the Inner Circle Companion Unnamed, Masters of CAWL, the guy, yeah, so this is really cool. Some of the newer Dark Angel stuff is all coming out. A lot of this is going to add a lot of utility to the Space Marine faction. This guy has a really interesting cost to stats thing going on with that taunt there. I believe there's more shields. I always love that. That's a great model. That's a firstborn model too. I like that. Murderfang. Orcs. The Gargant Smasher. Ooh, fuck. Blackhawk is now in the general pool. Ooh, the Chariot. The Secret Chariot for Slanesh. And then Kreen Madrak, the Gene Sterling Cults Talon Wolf Quad. Okay, so there we go. That's it. Yeah. That's pretty funny. Yeah, the first comment there is how common this guy is. He's everywhere, absolutely everywhere, even in the upper tier. But it is funny. I guess his overall play rate must have dropped measurably to be noticeable at some point. Because yeah, there are so many shielded cards in Space Marines now that you can add a couple points and get a shootier one, a punchier one, or one that does shooting and punchiness. Like, there are a lot of options around there. So I could understand why his play rate would go down, but it's nice to have him compete a little bit more and actually do something other than just tank damage. So that's it. Looking forward to the season. This should be a really good one. I am curious to see what new cards drop as well, and we're going to see most of those in campaign rewards. But these guys being in the Battle Pass is huge, because this thing, that's a super heavy. That's a, yeah, that's a super heavy. That's a really scary card. And then also these two are, to this day, despite some nerfs, probably the two most powerful cards in Space Marines. Mephiston is good at absolutely everything, and Asterath is ludicrously strong in melee, but very rare. So to get any copies of him at all is really good, and then to get him up to a reasonable level is just amazing. So it's pretty cool. I'm excited about this one. Hopefully you are too. Let me know what you think.